Hello there and welcome. In this video I got you 10 different tips and tricks for advanced and intermediate players in Rimworld. I have made this video specifically for players that are somewhere between 50 and 200 hours into the game and are looking for little things that make life easier. So I hope that this video is helpful for you. Let me know in the comment section, and here we go. Number one I want to talk about is make yourself a couple of favorite colonists and a couple of expendable colonists. You know, every colonist has its superstars, people that you just don't want to lose. These are obviously cheated by dev mode, but on the other end, you always will receive people that are less interesting than others. The basic idea is that you outsource your risks and your dangerous things to people that you're okay with losing, and keep the valuable people, those with the really high skill levels and or impressive traits in the backline, and make sure that they only fight in those fights where everybody is required. This way you can make sure that whatever you hunt or defend, that you always have the damage going on to people that you're okay with losing. Obviously works also pretty decent with people from other factions that came on by and now can be, you know, sky's your limit. Number two, there's obviously quite often people that come to your colony and suffer from a chemical fascination or whatever severity of the thing. I found only one thing to be really useful, and that's managing drug policies. This is also useful for many other reasons, and I will show you what you can do and how. So first up, if your people have chemical fascination in any way, I strongly recommend to pick up either smoke leaf or psychic tea and put it here onto a scheduled use, so they use it at least once per day. Don't overdo it, obviously. You can also measure it a little bit slimmer if your resources are tight, but altogether, only with this kind of assignment, your chemical fascination people will keep their mood on a okay level. Otherwise, they will always not be after their recreational use. But this configuration thing here can also be used for panoxycillin, which is ideally used every 5 days. So in your social drugs configuration, I don't know why it doesn't exist. You can go for every 5 days and boom, everybody in your colony will now take their panoxycillin if it is available. These are only a few things that you can do. Obviously this menu is a lot deeper, but I found these two things to be incredibly helpful, and configure it to your own liking, but chemical fascination colonists are handled this way quite easily. So number three, a couple of little things that you can improve your work order policies with. So first up, I really like to go for certain jobs and let them have a limited ingredient radius. So my cooks always get their meals limited onto a radius where they can only access the fridge. This way you prevent them from running across the map and grabbing stuff from elsewhere, which is resulting in horrible job assignments. And the other thing that I found to be incredibly helpful is to assign certain jobs only to specific workers. This is, for example, in the cooking business quite nice, especially since you can increase your cooking value by making smoke leaf joints. So you can assign these jobs to people that are horrible at cooking, so they don't mess up the meals, but they still can train themselves up. Obviously, this works also quite decent in the crafting business. I really like to go, in crafting's sake, to go for a certain worker and make sure that the piece of art is made to the best quality. The other thing and last thing of this point that I want to go into is that I basically always make a certain selection of what type of materials I use for my clothing. The standard settings I find really not cool, so usually when I tailor something, I recommend to select what kind of material you want to use, check on out what you got. Usually you don't want to make your clothing out of light leather, for example, because it's a horrible material. So choose the best materials, or specifically the materials that you want to use, or choose light leather because you just want to sell the stuff. But the default settings for crafting are quite horrible, and I find it really useful to tinker around with them and make sure that the best people use the best materials, or the worst people use the worst materials, and so on and so forth. Lots of more things there, but I find these to be very useful. Number 4, how to train shooting for everybody. It's very simple. So not everybody comes into your colony with a decent passion for shooting. These people, though, should be always given a fast-firing weapon, preferably shotguns, because these are very accurate, also in the hands of a newbie. And the best thing then to do is to schedule these people to hunting, and let them hunt small game, let them hunt rats, let them hunt everything that can't fight back. Eventually their shooting level will reach very okay levels. It is super easy to reach at least 10 ranks of shooting on a person that doesn't have any passion by just shooting small game. Obviously this doesn't work in every biome. If you have a very fauna low environment like the desert or so, this doesn't work as good. But still, at the end of the day, all that wildlife can be used as training XP for your people, and it's best spent on people that can't shoot well, because it's, at the end of the day, I find when it comes down to colony defense, everybody should be able to pull their weight, or do at least melee. You can also use this for medical skills of people. So whenever a enemy gets downed, if you have the time to spare, actually it's worth dragging them into your prison and patching them up and releasing them afterwards, just for the sake of the medical XP themselves. Because, you know, otherwise you need to hurt your own people to get medical XP, and that is not necessarily something you want. So shooting and medical, you can grind them up quite decently with that by just adjusting your habits a little bit. Number 5, the dangers of wealth. When you find valuable things on the map, think really closely about if you need them or not, because the thing is quite simple. The storyteller in Rimworld measures the threat it throws at you along many other factors, but one of the main factors is wealth. The wealthier your colony gets, the more dangerous the attacks get. So in short, before you mine out that gold vein and pile it up in your stockpile for no reason the next 5 years, think about it. It doesn't walk away. It doesn't really go bad either. It just isn't in your bank now exactly. For example, this jade vein here. It's nice. Once I need it, I dig it out. The best part is, my miners will even get more experience the longer I take it, so it's even kind of coming with an interest. But the long story short, the more valuable the parts of your colony, the more severe the attacks become. Therefore, pay attention to what you pile up, because it might actually become a problem for you. Number 6, preparations for the mid-game that are just helpful and should be achieved one time or another in the course of the, I don't know, first 5 years or so. Some sort of EMP weaponry. You really need those when the mechanoids come. I'm personally a really big fan of EMP grenades because I find them faster firing, and compared to that, no, I find they are faster firing compared to the launcher superior because it stuns more often, or gets more often a chance of stunning. Since the explosion radius is quite generous, I never found any other reason to take these over the other. Anyways, that's one thing. The other thing, mortars. Have at least 2 of them and maybe a few barrels to change and a couple of shells to fire. Like 20 or 30 shells ideally. This is because when you are getting sieged, the easiest way to break the siege is to fire at them until you hit either their mortar or their shells with a lucky stray shot, and then they conveniently will rush into your fortifications where you can take them down much more easily. Without mortars, though, sieges can become quite the pain to breach. I mean, there's always a strategy, but also, mortars become super useful when you have psychic ship attacks and or mechanoid clusters. Altogether, mortars are your friends. Their relatively low precision makes them quite obnoxious at times, but I found them to be really invaluable in many situations where the enemy tries to bunker down and annoy you by just being hard to kill. This is the way to breach them. And the last thing, obviously, a proper fortification. A wall around your base, a entry area where you can slow down the enemy and bring them down, and whatever security paranoia you want to fulfill. This is obviously also a mid-game preparation, but seriously, mortars and EMP are so useful. Which brings me to the next point, number 7, gear that you want to stockpile. For one, guns. Guns, guns, guns. You want to have your entire colony on guns. Obviously, that is pretty easy to understand. But take attention that you take quality guns. Among the shotguns, chain shotguns are really, really nice. Assault rifles are quite nice hybrid guns. Bring also something between SMGs, LMGs, or even a minigun if the enemy number gets really high. Overall, you have the difference between weapons that hit hard, which is, for example, the chain shotgun, which is really good to bring down single targets that are super dangerous. The chain shotgun is probably the best gun for that job in the game currently. And compared to that, you have guns that spread over the large mass of enemies, like the minigun and the SMG and the LMG. These are meant to cover the battlefield with lots of bullets when you have 20, 30 or more enemies on top of you. And last but not least, the assault rifle is serving as something in between. When you don't want to be too specialized, it serves as a jack-of-all-trades gun that is really, really nice. Apart from that, try to get yourself armor on your people. I'm a pretty big fan of flak vests and helmets because, you know, the torso and the head. If these get destroyed, your pawn is dead. Everything else can be replaced. The problem with all the other gear parts is they slow you down. The flak vest and the helmet does so, obviously already, but the flak pants do so, and the jacket does so. I mean, overall, you always have to consider how slow you want to have your folks compared to how safe you want to have your folks. This is always an offset, even when you go into power armor level. Even the marine armor has a substantial lowering of movement speed, so you can't get that. The only armor that I personally don't really would recommend, unless you are really severely in a pinch, is plate armor. I still don't know why I should use this besides doing a medieval run, because it's really among the worst things that you can have. It slows you down severely, and the stats aren't nearly as good as modern armor in relation to the offsets that you get. Anyways, I find that guns and armor are the things that you want to have, and obviously medicine, Glitterworld medicine, shells, yeah, these things are really important to have. And on the icing there, try to get yourself a little bit of plasteel, a little bit of gold at least available, because these high-end buildings for your research and such all have the nasty habit of costing these rather exotic materials. Advanced components are another thing which I personally find worthwhile stockpiling. Not too many though, 10 are enough, because then you get to the problem where you stockpile wealth for no reason again. Number 8, trading. So trading is probably one of the most mighty tools in the game, and I personally find it really worth mentioning that if you can't travel across the map, try to get yourself a comms console and the orbital trade beacons on your stockpiles as quick as you can. It is the most convenient way of trading, and overall the most easy way to get exclusive and desirable items into your colony. Everything else is not really as fast as this. If you are suffering from hostile neighbors, like for example here when the next best thing is hostile, you can build transport pod launchers, stockpile valuable goods into there and shoot it to the neighbors. They will take it as a gift, and they will like you more afterwards. So this way you can broker a peace if necessary. But my standpoint remains. Utilize trading as hard as you can. It is one of the nicest ways to get your colony's wealth well spent and well used. Number 9, your power production and how to optimize that. For one, I am a fond believer of a mixed power income. Until you have geothermal power, which is to me the king of the hill because it's just steady and quite plentiful, until you get that, always try to mix solar, wind, and have a backup of fossil fuel, so to speak. Chem fuel I really like to use in case of sudden threat events that block out any of these power generation types. A steady fog event destroys your wind power. A steady darkness event destroys your solar power. Relying only on one of these sources can really bite your back. The more DLCs and mods you use, the worse it gets. In short, try to not rely on only one source of power, especially green power has always these drawbacks for what it's worth. I find at the end of the day, geothermal is a heavy investment of research points and a somewhat heavy investment of resources, but it is always worth it to integrate it into your base setup. Last thing that I want to point out, when you're building your base, try to build only hidden conduits. These do not trigger the event that makes your batteries drain and spread fire. When a base only has hidden conduits, this event doesn't happen at all, and I found this really worth the extra investment. And number 10, the last thing, keep it at one project at a time. A base like this, which I have conveniently built in God mode, but, well, in reality, it would be a multi-layered project. And the thing about it is, in Rimworld, unless you use mods, you don't have a priority system, which means when you set out all the jobs all over the base, your people will be stuck with thousands of different jobs. I'm not over-exaggerating, big flooring projects can go that big. Overall, try to build one building at a time. Try to keep it at that bridge, at that building complex, at that workshop, and then one thing after another. Because one thing Rimworld is really bad at, and that is taking all the jobs all at once, because we don't even have a tool to tell them which job is now more important than the other. If you want to have something on that end, the allow tool mod is really to your liking. I made a video about that the other day. Anyways, in short, step by step. This is really working extremely well for Rimworld, and when I was newer to the game, I made this mistake many times, that I overburdened my colony with too many tasks, and then things just didn't go well anymore, and I was the only one to blame for that. Now, I hope this video had a couple of thoughts for you that were helpful. Obviously, there's way more than 10 things that you could say about this, so if you are yourself somebody who thinks you left out a couple of good ideas, Icon, put them into the comment section so people watching this video can partake into your knowledge, and I'm always eager to learn, you know. No matter how long I play this game, there's always more to learn. So feel free to share your knowledge. Feel free to share a like or subscribe to the channel. Also, support via Ko-fi or any other given means is more than appreciated. You find the links down in the description box. Feel free to. And many thanks go out to all of you who have helped so far and are still helping. Deeply appreciate what you do. And of course, I want to say a thanks to you right here, right now, for watching this video up until the very end. Appreciate you taking that time. Bye-bye.